Wringer Chapter 26. An hour later in his room with Dorothy Palmer, he was still jumpy. He paced back and forth, telling Dorothy what had happened. The more agitated he became, the faster he paced. Nipper observed from a booktop, swinging his head as if watching a ping-pong match. The bird had been waiting at the window, as usual, when Palmer returned home. "Sit down," said Dorothy, who sat on the homework desk. "You're making me nervous." "I can't help it," said Palmer. "I almost got killed out there." "Palmer, they kill pigeons in this town, not people." "That's what you think. You didn't see the way they were looking at me. And don't say," he formed the words "kill pigeons" with his lips, "around him." He nodded toward Nipper, who had stopped and cocked his head, as if listening. "Sorry," said Dorothy. "So, what are you going to do?" Palmer threw out his arms. "I don't know." He spoke to Nipper. "You dumb, stupid bird brain, why'd you go and do that? What am I going to do?" When he'd come home and found Nipper at the window as usual, he was both happy and not happy. He half wished Nipper hadn't showed up so he could be rid of the whole problem. For a moment he considered pulling down the shade, and then he hated himself for even thinking that, and threw open the window. He took 2 fistfuls of his own hair, squatted on the floor, and screamed up at the pigeon. "What am I gonna do?" Nipper's answer was a gargling noise. "Teach him to shoot foul shots. Get it? FOWL? Ha ha ha!" Dorothy tittered at her own joke. Palmer was not amused. Dorothy had Palmer's magic marker in one hand, the Nerf ball in the other. She tossed him the ball. In large black letters on the spongy surface she'd written the words, "Nipper's ball." "Big help you are," said Palmer. Palmer's nervousness lasted until he went to sleep that night, and resumed when his alarm clock woke him up the next morning, with the customary nip on the earlobe. He did not feed Nipper on the roof as usual. Instead, he spread newspaper on his floor and poured the honey crunchers there, plus some leftover peas from dinner the night before. Nipper loved peas. Then Palmer quickly opened the window and shooed his pigeon into the sky. Now, what should he wear? He was afraid that if he wore his usual clothes, Nipper might again recognize him and drop in on him after school. He needed a disguise. He looked around. He found the long-sleeved white shirt that he'd once worn to Cousin Linda's wedding, and the dark brown trousers that had gone with it. He checked himself in the mirror. He still looked too much like Palmer LaRue. He went down to the basement to the closet where his mother had stored everyone's winter clothes. He got out his thick, quilted, thigh-length coat, the one his father said could keep him warm at the North Pole. He also grabbed his green woolen stocking cap with the pom-pom. Why not? His father's black and white checkered scarf. He stuffed the hat and the scarf in his pockets, and was sneaking out the door when his mother screeched, "Halt!" She approached him, squinting as if not believing her eyes. "What's this?" she said, fingering the quilted coat. "A coat, Mom." "I can see that, Palmer. It's May. It's warm out." "I heard it's going to get colder later on." "Not that cold." "Okay, look, I'll unzipper it." He unzippered the coat. "I gotta go, Mom. I'm going to be late." He bolted down the steps and up the sidewalk, hoping his mother would not call him back. She did not. In the classroom, Palmer kept looking out at the clock. For once, he wanted school to last forever. He did not want to have to walk home. He dreaded the closing bell. When it came, he marched up to the teacher and told her he thought she should keep him after school. She looked at him kind of funny. "And why is that, Palmer?" "Because I was bad." She looked surprised. Palmer was never bad. "I was not aware of that," she said. You just didn't catch me, said Palmer. Oh, is that so? And now you wish to confess your crime? Yeah. You want to clear your conscience? Yes. I see. She was smiling. She settled back in her chair. So, what bad thing did you do? I spit on the floor. Her eyebrows went up. Really? Right here, in this room? Yeah. When did you do this? After lunch? She stood. Would you mind showing me where you did it at? Palmer had not anticipated this. He'd not thought a confession required proof. I wiped it up, he said. She nodded, still smiling. Well, that was good of you. I think that settles it. You may go on home now. Palmer stood there, hanging from her eyes. He could not bring himself to go outside. He took a step back, turned to the side, and spit on the floor. Look, I did it again, he said. The teacher gasped. She was no longer smiling now. He was ordered to fetch a paper towel and clean it up. He was sent to the blackboard to write 100 times, I will never, 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 ever again spit on the floor. 5 of the nevers plus the ever were his own idea. He wrote as slowly as he could. The teacher was in and out of the room as he wrote. At one point, the guys showed up at the door. What are you doing? Beans asked. Being punished, said Palmer. Beans leaned in to look at the blackboard. You spit on the floor? Yep. The guys were goggle-eyed. Was it a big one? Said Mutto. A lunger, said Palmer. The guys were swooning. They were really impressed. Took me 5 minutes to clean it up. At that moment, he could have been elected president of the gang. The teacher returned and the guys took off. From then on, whenever the teacher left the room or simply wasn't looking, Palmer erased what he had just written. When she finally packed up to go home, she came to the blackboard and counted the sentences. 9! She exclaimed. Palmer, you write like a snail. I'll go faster, he said. No, you may stop now. Punishment's over. Palmer clutched the chalk. I don't think I should stop until I get to 100. I can feel the sentences working. I think I need the whole punishment to make me stop spitting. The teacher took a step back. The look on her face said, Is he going to fire one at me? Then her expression changed, hardened. Palmer, she said firmly, I am confident you will never spit in this room again. Now put that chalk down and go home. He put down the chalk. He got his coat and put it on. He zippered it up. The teacher's jaw dropped. Her eyes widened as he pulled the green woolen cap down over his ears, as he wrapped the checkered scarf around his neck and pulled it up to just below his eyes. She was about to say something. My mother's afraid I'll catch the flu, he blurted, and ran from the room before she could stop him. When he got outside, his heart sank. The guys were still there. They'd ignored his heavy coat on the way to school, but now, seeing the added scarf and hat, they cracked up. Hey, Snots, where's the blizzard? You look like Frosty the Snow Nerd, man. My mom made me, he told them, trying to sound resentful. She says I'm getting the flu. He tried to steer them to another subject. What are you guys doing here anyway? Beans sidled alongside, draped his arm around Palmer's shoulders. Where are your buddies, Snots? You get punished. We wait. His smile was as flat as a cartoon. Palmer, Henry was the only one who occasionally called him by his right name. Be honest, man. Did you really spit on the floor? Palmer looked them all in the eye. Yeah, I said it, didn't I? They weren't sure whether to believe him, but they wanted to. Palmer could tell, and suddenly he realized he had stumbled onto a way to divert attention from Nipper. He marched back to the school door, pulled it open dramatically, and pointed inside. He yanked down the scarf and growled, "Go ask Miss Kiner." They believed. He could see it in their faces. They mobbed him, slapping fives, cheering his name. On the way home, they pestered him again and again to tell the story, especially the look on the teacher's face. They laughed and they thumped his back. They said they didn't think he'd ever do such a thing. They no longer seemed to care or even notice that he was muffled up like a mummy. But they did scan the skies. In the midst of the laughing and thumping, Palmer caught their eyes drifting upward. And Meadow had something new with him this day. A slingshot. Palmer pulled the scarf higher and prayed that Nipper was already home.